Welcome to another edition of Time for Forgiveness, the show that not only teaches you how to forgive, but also gives you compelling guests who share their stories on how they found the path to forgiveness. Now, please welcome your hosts. Here are Kelly and Bob Pascuzzi.
Okay, we want to welcome you back for another episode of Time for Forgiveness. My name is Robert Pascuzzi, and this is Kelly Pascuzzi, my wife, and we're here today with some special friends, Craig and Judy Arnold. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Such a
Lovely
pleasure and
being
honor.
with
We're
you.
really looking forward to our conversation today. Before we get started, I just want to recognize Craig and Judy. We both do for your service to the country over many, many years. And in fact, Craig and Judy started their FBI service in 1983, and they continued that all the way to the end of 2005. So a very illustrious and just a wonderful service to our country in many, many ways. We're going to get into that here in a few minutes in more detail. But Craig, I just want to, for the audience, recognize you with the vast recognition that you received during your time with the FBI. I'm going to read this list here for everybody. First of all, FBI Medal of Valor 1997, FBI Shield of Bravery 1992, Director's Award for Criminal Investigation 1996, Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association Valor Award 1997, International Narcotic Enforcement Officers Association Medal of Valor 1997, Kansas City Metropolitan Chiefs and Sheriffs Association Valor Award Gold 1997, and the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund Officer of the Month Award, November 1998. Wow. Well, that's going to be a tough one to beat for anybody, but congratulations on all of your recognition, Craig, and you well-deserved. So, Craig, I understand that a lot of these awards were really driven from one incident. It was a shooting that you were involved with, and maybe we can start there and just have you share with the audience what happened on that particular day.
Sure, Bob. It was January 30th, 1997. They were developing a case. They had an informant that a bad guy said, "I want to buy some dope from you." So we started what we call in the business a reverse dope deal. We would pretend to sell 6 kilos to this bad guy, and the source would have it in the motel room. And once the bad guy came in with the money to pay for it, I'd go through the door, we put the cuffs on this guy, and that'll be it, a reverse dope deal. Normally, we buy dope from bad guys and arrest them. This time, we're purporting to sell it to them, 6 kilos. Guy brings the cash in, the dealer's made. We go through the door and arrest him. We had rehearsed the entry several times. We had the adjoining room, the source of one room, the dope was there. We were in the adjoining room, and my partner and I had rehearsed going through the door, open the door, draw my weapon, rehearsed, visualize, talked about it, how we're going to put cuffs on him. Ultimately, the guy was out picking up money, we thought. He came back to Motel 6 with 3 people in the car. We said, if all 3 come up, they're not getting in the room, we're going to take them down outside. We'll exit through our room, not the source's room, and take them down outside. KCMO police had a TAC team outside in the parking lot too. So, but if the guy comes up by himself, the main target, we'll let the deal go down and we'll go in and arrest him. Well, nothing goes according to plan. So he came in, shook the source's hand, took a gun out of the bag, turned around, and just shot him. Source went down. I kind of looked up because we had a video monitor in our room, and I couldn't see it from my position. And obviously the source didn't have a weapon, so shots fired, something bad's happening. So I started my entry through the door. I had to manipulate the doors. There's 2 doors, like in the motel rooms, 2 doors. I had to manipulate the opening to both. Then I'm drawing my weapon out of my shoulder rig. And as the door opens, the bad guy is right next to me, just missed a shot with the informant, and he started turning toward me with his gun, and I told myself, you better hurry up because something bad's going to happen to you if you don't get going here, to myself. And I don't remember saying it. Like the inspectors that came in I don't remember saying it. I said, freeze FBI. I had no recollection I said that. But again, training kicked in, visualization. Freeze FBI. And I shot him 4 times with my FBI, and he died at my feet. He was dead right there, as we say. And my partner came in behind me, and he's yelling at the guy, let me see your hands. I want to cut. He was dead right there. Source is screaming and hollering. He says, Craig, I've been shot. I know, Joe. I know. Hold on. We call 911. Fortunately, it went through his shoulder, across the chest, out the older shoulder. Not that severe, but we got him treatment. And it was a pretty intense day. Again, many things in life don't go as planned. And certainly, I left home that morning not thinking I was going to be taking a life to save a life and going through all sorts of post-shooting interviews and investigations and everything. But, God puts us in a place in God's plan, and I'm glad I was there to be able to save his life. And whatever negative ramifications were for me, emotionally and whatever, is a price you pay for going through that door. You go through that door, you know what's going to be there. But it worked out. It worked out well. The source lived, and my life was changed for obviously, and Judy's was too, in many areas, including the job, your faith, forgiveness, yourself. It changed in so many ways, but I wouldn't take any of it back. I talked about it before. She didn't know what happened. Her radio wasn't on, and I have a bad track record with that because I was involved in a drug kidnapping shooting in New York City. We had to save the life of a person kidnapped, and I didn't call her right. I didn't call her till the next day sometime, and she said, where you been? Well, I've been in a shooting, and I haven't, whatever, so not the best spouse sometimes on a job, but.
Okay. You got it, Ben? Yeah.
Okay, that was incredible.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Yeah, that was great.
I mean,
Yeah,
You should
thank
be
you.
on the
so
show,
good.
Craig.
Thank you. It's
Like, that was better than somebody scripting it. It was incredible what you just said.
what I must tell you. I appreciate the opportunity to come here like this because I did one for Jerry Williams, her podcast, and it was good for me on that one. But today was even better for me, cathartic, helping me along to talk about it honestly and openly with friends. It helps me,
Yeah.
and to revisit those things. It's very helpful for me to process it because you think about certain things you don't think about before. And some of the things, like you said, Kelly, about the forgiveness aspect, I never really thought about it in that context. So it's very good. And it's good for me to hear Judy talk about things, and for me, because a lot of things we've discussed have never come up before. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak about it, because it's very helpful
Yeah.
to me, and I think for us as a couple, too. So, God's plan, I have to tell this story because it's so meaningful to me. God's plan is alive and well because I took that life to save a life. The Bureau sent out a chaplain from our Newark office, Father Raymond Lopeteski, Monsignor. He was a mental health professional. He helped me. I got to know him well. I got involved with National Police Week. I was a peer in a conference of men and women. Actually, it was fathers who've lost sons or daughters line-of-duty shootings, fatal shootings. So I'm talking with fathers who've lost their sons or daughters in fatal shootings, and I was part of that. Well, Father Ray was also at Police Week, so we get to know him. Judy would come with me. Father would celebrate Mass in his hotel room and everything, and I wasn't Catholic then, right? So I'd gone to Mass with Judy, and I'd sat in Mass, and I loved the Mass, the structure. But I really couldn't go through RCIA on the job because of our schedules. Once I retired, I was working at the Marlboro Ranch up in Montana, and I was up there 3 weeks at a time, homesick, so I couldn't do RCIA. Fast forward, we retired in 2005. Father Ray says, I'm taking a pilgrimage to Venice, Florence, Assisi, and Rome in 2006. You want to go? Absolutely. And before we went, Judy was out doing errands and stuff. He called, just some details about going away, and he says, have you ever thought about being Catholic? I said, well, Father, I have, and I love the Mass and everything, but I can't get through RCIA because he said, you've been baptized? Yes, I have, Father. We'll take care of it. Long story short, fast forward, Venice, Florence, Assisi, and Rome. First morning in Rome, going to Mass in the Irish chapel underneath. Everyone, 18 people knew about me becoming Catholic that day. Judy did not. So I was nervous about yourself, but Judy didn't know. So we go there, we're in the Irish chapel underneath, and Father Ray says, we have a special event today. Judy said, all right, someone's anniversary, birthday, that'll be cool. Said, Craig almost got to become Catholic today. I swear. She fell, she'd been praying for her so long, she was bawling, she could hardly stand up.
Wow.
But you see, God's plan.
Right.
You know, I never would have met Father Ray if I hadn't been involved with that shooting. And then he was my pathway to become a Catholic in Rome on All Souls Day, 2006.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is, I
So-
mean,
That's
it's very
awesome.
powerful when you say that
To me,
because, you know, we really don't understand. And sometimes things happen in our lives and we question, which I understand why we all do. But then you have this word that we call faith and trust in something beyond ourselves. And so I appreciate you sharing that. But I want to go into something that you just said. You know, she didn't know. I bet as you guys both being in the department, I find that interesting. So in one way, I feel like it'd be so supportive of the spouse because you understand what the other one's going through. But in another way, then wasn't there a lot of fear around what was happening with you two in your marriage because you knew what was happening with the job, I should say. Does that make sense, my question?
no, absolutely. And Judy was very supportive, and she never, you know, I was SWAT team leader, and we were on jobs, rescuing hostages, doing all this stuff. A lot of bad guys. We took down the bomb factory after the
World Trade Center.
the World Trade Center, the original World Trade. We took down the bomb factory. They were trying to bomb the UN, the FBI office, and some other place. So we took down that. They were mixing the bomb as we knocked the door down, and one guy went for a machine gun. Didn't get to it. We didn't have to kill anybody, fortunately. But she never got on me about my desire to be in SWAT. I worked on a narcotics squad at NYPD. We were Colombian cocaine. So my first shooting I was involved with, it was a drug kidnapping, involved in a shooting there. We were around dope dealers all the time and bad hours, but she was so supportive and never got on me about, haven't you had enough of that? Why don't you go to a safer squad?
Right.
And she never get in my ass about a lot of questions. She's always been very holy and always prayed for me. And she prayed forever for me to become a Catholic, and it finally happened. But she was so supportive. I can't imagine with my job or anyone's job if you don't have the support of your best friend. It just won't work.
Right.
It won't work.
So explain that support.
Well, I think there's a lot of different facets to it. One is I had ultimate confidence in Craig's ability, and he's smart. He's got good. He can sense, a situation and know exactly how to react to it. Well trained, focused, and just very into his job. There was nothing more important than getting the job done. So I had ultimate confidence in him. I never questioned that he would ever face a danger that he couldn't meet and defeat. And maybe that's just part of my head that was, that's my defense, because I figured, he's pretty much indestructible. So, and then the other part of that is I knew all the guys that he worked with, knew them well. Shared meals with them, shared stories with them, shared,
Adult beverage or two?
Yeah, adult beverage or
Couple of
two.
those.
So, and I had ultimate confidence in them, in their training and, their ability to work together. And so when they went out, I knew they were all in good hands. But beyond that, I did have, that trust and faith in God that he's going to take care of him, And so I just basically said, okay, this is what they got to do. He's in your hands, And if something happens, that's the price you pay, because that's the oath you took, and that's the oath he took. And if I were to say, no, I don't want you to do that, then that would have just been selfish pride on my part. So I said,
But looking back on it, I realized that she was dedicated, and I was running wiretaps, I was SWAT, working dope, your hours are terrible, and the SWAT added to that. Looking back on my life, I realized I lost my focus on my balance with my marriage and the job. And it's not unusual, I think, in law enforcement, but it took too much of me, and I don't think I was as good a husband as I should have been. I was a little bit too much into the job, and I got to do this, got to do that. Looking back on it, I realized that, and we've talked about it.
it's easy to lose that balance,
yeah,
but
I did.
yeah.
And Judy, at the time, you were in the Bureau as well, and what department or division were you in?
Well, when I was in Mississippi, I did violent crime. And then when I moved to, transferred to New York, I did primarily financial crimes. And then ultimately, when healthcare fraud became the big buzzword, and the Bureau got actively involved in healthcare fraud, then I headed up the New York unit that addressed healthcare fraud, and which I did when we transferred here. So all white collar, except for my little 2 years in Mississippi.
And she could have been, we call him a special agent in charge, head of an office.
Mm-hmm.
She could have been that and more, because all the bosses wanted her to rise up because she had everything going for her. But she wouldn't do it because she said, because you have to go to the Bureau. So we're in New York City. They said, come to the Bureau. You have to work at FBI headquarters. It's a stepping stone. She said, I'm not leaving my husband here. I'm not leaving him. But she could have been, but she decided I could be a supervisor, but I'm not leaving my best friend in New York and running. Oh, you can get out here during the week, come home on weekend. She goes,
And a lot of agents did that.
Yeah, I'm not
A
doing
lot
that.
of agents just commuted every,
Yeah.
we're home late Friday night, left Sunday night, and I'm like, that's no way to have
So
a
she gave up.
marriage.
She could have been, the sky was the limit with her, but she gave it up, for our marriage, so we could stay together as a couple, so.
But I don't regret it.
No.
I mean, it just seemed like the logical thing to do. I love you. I want to be with you. I didn't want him to have to move because that wouldn't have been fair to him. He was SWAT team leader and, having the time of his life, doing a great job.
Plus, if you were in D.C. during the week and I was up in New York, I would have no adult supervision.
No adult supervision. And
God
that
knows what could happen with that.
just wouldn't have worked.
So were you guys able to tell one another what was really going on at all times?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We shared, all of that, which is nice because if your wife or husband wasn't on the job, there's certain sensitive issues that you really can't talk about. Is when
You can only talk about what's in the public domain.
it's like when the John Gotti trial in New York City. My SWAT team, and I was assistant team leader then, we protected Sammy the Bull Gravano. We had him hidden out on Governor's Island. We brought them in on a Coast Guard cutter to a certain pier in Brooklyn every day. Half the team traveled with them. The other team went with the Suburbans, picked them up at the pier, got them into court every day because Gotti had $1 million hit on Sammy the Bull.
Right.
So, for instance, if Judy wasn't on the job, I couldn't say, well, we got them hidden out on Governor's Island, we're going to do this and that. You know, there's certain things you can't because if it got out, it could cost a lot of lives. So that's a good thing about agent couples. You can share what a great or a bad day or what's going on, you know, with your job. So
Was that common? I would have thought
More
that
and
you
more.
guys
More and
were.
more.
Huh.
Yeah, when Craig and I got married in '88, it wasn't quite as common. As a matter of fact, I think in the early bureau, it was pretty frowned upon.
Yeah.
But you also have to understand there weren't women in the FBI until after J. Edgar Hoover died. So that was like the first women were sworn in '72.
you know, or a little bit later.
Somewhere in the
Yeah.
early '70s. So, you know, and then it was a difficult job for women to get and keep because of the transfer policies and, you know, whatever. So,
Because your husband would have to, you get transferred, what's he going to do, right? So
Right.
if he wasn't on the job.
and that wasn't the mentality back then. You know, it was, you know, the husband gets transferred. It's just expected that the wife follows and whatever. It wasn't quite as common, you know, for the wife to get transferred and the husband to go, well, what am I supposed to do now? So a lot of the early agents left, you know, within, you know, a few years.
Female agents, yeah.
Yeah, female agents.
Yeah.
But when, interestingly, when Craig and I got married, I think there were like 3 or 4 other couples just on our squads that were married couples. So, and I'm sure that's the way it is now, you know, that there are any number of agent couples. But it does help. It does help to understand, you know, the long hours, the you know, the frustrations, you know.
Challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, you have somebody you can really vent to, you know, and not carry all that around. So,
Yeah.
but it's difficult. It's still difficult, you know, no matter. But it was.
Was
it's good.
that a struggle for you after the shooting as well?
It was. The hardest part was that he wouldn't talk about it. And on one side, you know, I'm going, well, I understand that. You know, I understand him not wanting to talk about it, but I need for him to talk about it. You know,
Right.
so it, you know, it was difficult. It was a difficult period for us as a couple, because what I was going through and trying to process was so much different than what he was, and there wasn't a lot of communication, and it was just frustrating. So it did take a while to get past that. And there are only so many things you can say. So many times you can say, Craig, what you did was, you know, heroic. You saved, you know, this man's life. You know, you did something that, you know, most of the population would have never done. You know, you put yourself in harm's way, and, you know, that didn't seem to console him at all, you know. So he's, you know, for a man who never is without something to say, he mostly said nothing.
So, Craig, can you share a little bit about how you did process all this emotionally from your faith standpoint?
And you know, the interesting thing was when this shooting happened, I wasn't Catholic, but I had faith. And I felt good of what I did. I felt a little guilty, as I said earlier. I feel guilty because I feel bad because I don't feel bad, is what I told myself. I feel bad because I don't feel bad I took a human life. But processing that through with my faith in God and God's plan, helped me get through that. Judy's support and love for me and her prayers for me helped me get through that. And ultimately, with her prayers and support, and my faith in the belief that I did the right thing, even though it was difficult, allowed me to, okay, it's okay, let's move on. But I must tell you, I was off work for 2 weeks, and my partner was a KCK officer, because we were on a task force. He followed me through the door. So we went back to work after 2 weeks, and we get a call. There may be a top 10, FBI has a top 10 list. One of the top 10 guys, a real badass murderer, may be at this medical building down in Overland Park. So we jump in the car, some other people, light and siren, hauling ass down I-35. And my partner and I looked at us and said, oh, shit. Because, we're still trying to get over what just went through. And I hadn't processed it all through. I needed to get back to work, but by the same token, I wasn't really mentally prepared for something like this right after it. Mm-hmm. We looked at each other and said, huh. It wasn't the guy, but it was my heart rate and the stress was because a couple of weeks earlier, the real thing had happened. But the recovery process takes a while, and that's why I get frustrated with TV, because they don't show what the officer goes through in trying to process what has happened. Mm-hmm. And I wish I'd been Catholic a lot of years earlier. I really envy the college students that have their faith, because college would have been a lot easier for me with faith to get through hard times and challenges at college. So I envy them. And I think my processing of the shooting would have been easier too if I was a Catholic at that point.
And why?
Because of the, once I became Catholic, it just like my faith was transformed. And it was a part of me. Rather than a belief, it was a part of me and how I live. And I would know that I'd have the support of my whole parish and the Catholic community behind me. I wouldn't face it just Judy and I, and my family. It would have been a different road for me, I think, after the shooting if I had been a Catholic then. And I wish I'd been Catholic a lot of years earlier for many reasons.
Well, it provides such a strong foundation to every aspect of your life, mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe what Craig was lacking during mm-hmm. all that. He didn't have that foundation that us, cradled Catholics, have, and to fall back on, which, we've always seen as, asking how people get through, horribly traumatic incidents, the death of a baby, the murder or slaughter of a whole family. How do you get through that? And it's faith and that foundation that your life is based on. Mm-hmm. It's like the the gospel story. You built on stone or you built on sand. And, if you're on sand, then you feel so vulnerable and you just sink. Whereas if you have that foundation that the Catholic Church provides, I think dealing with like the shooting, dealing mm-hmm. with all kinds of, traumatic instances is going to be a lot easier. And it's going to hurt, and it's still going to have its ups and downs, but without that foundation, you're just lost. You don't know where to go. You don't know where to turn. And I think that, in our discussions,
would have been better.
That's what was lacking.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that it just brings to mind when my best friend had been murdered, I remember, you just take your faith for granted. And I was so grateful at that time that I had it because, I it gave me something to question. If I wouldn't have had that to question, I do believe I would have been lost, and I don't know if I would have got through it. So going a step further with that, as I'm thinking about the idea of forgiveness, it wasn't really the challenge of you forgiving the gentleman you shot. There, I guess what I'm asking is the challenge was really probably forgiving yourself. So would you talk about that?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because if I had my faith then, like my Catholic faith, because the shooting was January 30th, 1997, it would have been an easier road for me to forgive myself. See, if I had that basis of the Catholic faith and forgiveness, which is emphasized, how many times do I have to forgive, Lord? Peter, seven times. But a lot of people don't, I think, realize, as you alluded to, people need to forgive themselves. And I think it's easier for me to forgive another person than myself, especially if you cause an action to cause a death. It's a lot easier to forgive someone else for wronging me. Or if someone shot me and I survived, I would think I would find it easier to forgive them than it is to forgive myself for taking their life. So I think that process would have been easier for me, Kelly, if I had my Catholic faith then, because I would have scripture and stories and homilies from our priest who would help me on the issue of forgiveness. But it took me a while to forgive myself, and I knew my actions were justified. That wasn't the point. Even the Bureau came back and said, good shoot, yeah, good job. They gave me the Medal of Valor, whatever. But I still felt bad about feeling bad. And it wasn't for a while until I was able to forgive myself. And conceptually, I think it's harder to forgive yourself than someone else. And it takes longer time.
Like, did someone talk to you about that? Was there a process that you read about? Were you just aware that, I really got to do this for myself?
As far as
Forgiveness. I mean, I'm sure you're carrying this extra baggage around and you're feeling that probably in your life in so many aspects. But how did it come about that you were like, okay, I really got to do this for myself? And how'd you do it?
I was kind of stumbling around, Kelly, because I didn't have the faith, the Catholic faith, and the scriptures and the teachings of our priests about forgiveness, and I would have found that able to assist me in that process, but I didn't have it. So I was kind of stumbling around, and I think ultimately I forgave myself, not really knowing that I did. And it just, eventually I was good with it, and I forgave myself, but not really, at that time, conceptually realizing you've forgiven yourself. All I know is eventually I could sleep better, I felt
You
okay
had the
about
awareness that you had let it go.
it. Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, and it would have helped, I think, if I had understood it more and had
A process maybe you could
exactly. I'd have been much better off then.
Right.
The path would have been quicker, I think, to forgive myself and achieve that peace that you get with forgiveness.
I'm just curious, Craig, because I know you're very strong in your faith, and I look up to you and Judy, and I know Polly does too.
Yeah.
And you're quite, the bedrocks at the parish. But I am curious because I think you mentioned when we started that you hadn't brought this topic up in confession.
Right.
Do you mind me asking? Is there a reason why you haven't? You just didn't feel a need to, or?
Well, I guess two things. I didn't feel a need to, but then I also, it's kind of an unresolved issue with me from my faith. I know it's a good shoot. I only had to do it to save a life. But at one point, I think I may go to a priest and just talk to him about it. And
You
during
did talk to
confession.
Father Ray at the time.
Father Ray, I did. I did at Father Ray,
Yeah.
with Father Ray. But the issue still lingers. And I still wonder why I didn't, should I? And I would think ultimately I would feel better to raise the issue. And I think I may try to do that because having the Bureau sign off on it, having everyone say it's a good shoot, it's all good. I think ultimately, Father, I took a life, and I think it, and sometimes they didn't really know if it would be an appropriate issue, but if it bothers me and I feel guilty about it, maybe I should bring it up to the priest, especially one that I have a good rapport with and kind of knows a little bit about me. But yeah, I think when the shooting happened back in 1997, if I'd been a Catholic then, I think I would have gone to confession and probably would have speeded up the path for forgiveness and also my recovery from, taking a human life. And eventually, I was back at it, kicking down doors and getting deployed to Afghanistan and doing things and processed it. And see, the good news is I have the ability, and a lot of people do it, it's a human trait. I could put that in a compartment, that issue. And sometimes it's good to keep it that way. Other times it's not good to keep it hidden away.
Right.
But it allows you to function, especially in a law enforcement environment, to go out the next morning and go through a door and chase guys, car chase, foot chase, whatever. But I feel the process would have been expedited for me if I had been a Catholic then and probably gone to confession back in 97.
I feel like what you said is probably a good thing when it's in that compartment, but when it comes back out, that may not be such a good thing.
Right. When the bear gets out, yeah, when he's loosed in your mind, sometimes it's pretty scary. And sometimes you say, well, I should have faced this and dealt with it rather than push it in that compartment. But, it's a human trait, and I think...
But I feel like there's times in our lives that we do face those things. And it may be layers of facing those things. But I do like to sometimes look back at my progress and say, I'm really proud that I broke through that. And it's caused me to become this. How would you answer? You broke through a lot of those things, and it caused you to become...
I think it's caused me to become a better person and a better husband. And actually, retiring off the job, I had no regrets. I've been there, done that. Several shootings, deployed, Africa, Afghanistan. Did everything I wanted to do. Had no regrets. In fact, part of that was why she's such a wonderful rock for me and support. Still a big kid. This is 2005. Mandatory end of 2005. So the Bureau is sending agents to Afghanistan to help out. What we would do is interview people, get a sat phone, if there's any U.S. numbers, check them out. Interview people, the bomb makers, take all sorts of DNA. And anyway, we're trying to prevent another 9/11. The Marines and the Special Forces and the Army and SEALs try to win the war. We're trying to prevent another 9/11 over there. So I said, babe, I want to go to Afghanistan. I got a guy I know that's head of the unit to get me to front of the line because I'm retiring end of the year. So I'm 56 years old, still immature, I've never grown up, and I want to go over to a combat zone. What does my wife do? She's very supportive of me because she knows I would have regrets if I didn't go. And I would have regretted it. So she supported me, and I went over there for 3 months and made it back home. Interesting story. I was supposed to be on this helicopter to go interview someone at this forward operating base. And so the night before I was supposed to leave, we checked to make sure that person was still going to be there interview. Well, he or she had left. The helicopter the next morning that went there got shelled, killed 3 people, and it would have been melancholy. And Judy told the boss, my boss over there was a assistant special agent in charge in Kansas City. Judy said, it's a good thing you checked on that, because if you got my husband killed, that would have been your ass. No, but she was very supportive.
Too.
But she was very supportive of something which a lot of people might look as foolhardy.
Oh, absolutely.
Foolhardy, but
Yeah, like you've done your part, right? You're good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of laugh, but I mean, I'm kind of moved and inspired by your faith.
Oh, yeah. Judy.
Those were
Right.
not small asks at those times. So it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
and I know her
but,
prayers.
You know,
She prayed forever for me to become Catholic. It finally happened. So it's her prayers that helped me retain my faith.
Well, that's an amazing. I love your testimony every time I hear it,
Oh,
and
thanks,
Judy
Bob.
too. I have some better perspective now because I see. I got to get a glimpse into your life a little bit more and what you've been through. So, thank you for everything you've done for Craig too.
it was our pleasure, believe me.
Yeah, you guys make a great couple. Yeah. The
Some
support
days.
is very, yeah, I get it. I mean,
Well, I think it's most important, that we thank you for your service to our country.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I think
everything you have given.
It was
Yes.
our honor, really. Yeah,
Really.
our honor to serve the country and the Marines and the FBI. And I wouldn't. I had more fun, really. I didn't want to take any vacation on the job because I didn't want to miss anything. I mean, really, I loved what I did, trying to make the community and the country safer.
Yeah.
And
you did.
And I didn't even know what I made every
So
month.
did
It was
you.
direct deposit. I didn't care what they're paying me. I'm having so much fun,
Wow.
and feeling good. At night, Fugitive Task Force here, we go out arresting murderers, armed robbers every day, come home at night. I feel good with what we did. And then Judy, locking that pharmacist up and dealing with all the victims that would call in. They were victims that didn't get the medicine and their parents or relatives died. We talked about that. She felt, we did.
We did a good thing.
Did a good thing, and so that's been very rewarding. And the good Lord has been blessing us with being healthy in our retirement and able to travel after the job. Because during the job, you couldn't take any real time off to do anything. So we've been blessed.
We have been blessed.
Yeah.
We're blessed in our careers. We're blessed in retirement, and
Yeah.
Learned that you just don't take all that for granted. And
Well, we feel blessed to know you guys.
Well,
Just really
thank you,
appreciate-
Bob.
Just
That's
appreciate
very
your,
humbling.
your friendship.
the work you do is
Yeah.
equally as important.
And one nice thing is before I retired, I was appointed to the FBI Medals Board. They have 2 agents that have received the Medal of Valor, 2 special agent charged in the field, and 1 assistant director at the Bureau. We vote on medals that should be awarded or not awarded. And that was very, very rewarding to me to see all the brave and valorous deeds that, our fellow agents do across the country you don't ever really hear about. And that was, to me, very rewarding and humbling. So it's all good, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about the job and our faith. But whatever in fact, I wrote a book, and I kind of, at the end of it, I said, whatever I did positively on my job is really all due to Judy's support. And I wouldn't have been able to do much of that at all without her support and guidance and prayers. It wouldn't have happened.
Behind every great man is a better woman.
And the title of the book is Proud to Serve, which is both our mantras.
Yeah.
We were proud to serve. People say thank you, we appreciate that. But for us, we were just proud
But
to
you
serve.
genuinely mean that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we say, thank you for your service, it's, it was an honor, or you were worth it, or it's moving that there's a passion there, and it's genuine to serve the country.
Absolutely. Yep. Very true. There's a lot of us out there
Better
with
to
that.
serve than to be served.
Right.
Well, Craig and Judy, thanks for being with us.
Thank
you,
you for
Bob.
the
Everyone,
opportunity.
Craig and Judy Arnold, we're going to wrap up another episode of Time for Forgiveness, and thanks for being with us today.
Wow, what an exciting episode. Thank you so much for listening and for watching Time for Forgiveness. Hey, listen, visit our website at timeforforgiveness.org. And here's the great news. You can now download our workbook. Just click on the QR code. It's that simple. You can also message us on our website because we read every single message, and we certainly love to help. You can also reach us on our socials on Instagram and Facebook, and you can email us, again, at info@timeforforgiveness.org. I'm Sean Parr for Bob and Kelly Pascuzzi. We'll see you next time on Time for Forgiveness.